What's up YouTube? John here. Thank you so much for joining Blue Carbon Reefing. Today we are going to be testing some water parameters. So very early in the hobby, one of the first things I had heard and the number one tip for anything, and you'll hear this probably quite a bit moving forward now that I'm going to say this, is the best thing you can do, or the number one way to be successful with keeping corals and having a reef tank, is stability. So it doesn't matter, certain people will run parameters at different things. DKH, with your alkalinity, for example, some people will run it at 8, some people will run it at 10. It doesn't really matter. There are different ways to make this all work, but if you keep things stable, you're constantly at 8 all the time, or you're constantly at 10 all the time, your corals will get used to it and they will be very happy. So when things fluctuate and they're not stable, that's when you will start to have problems with some of your corals. So this is why you test your water. I'm going to go through this with you. For a lot of you, you've probably seen these things done 100 times or do them 100 times yourself. I will leave a link in the description for some of the new people out there. This should be very helpful. I'll give you some of the tips and tricks that what I do when it comes to testing the water, but I will leave in the description kind of a time period of when I start each test that maybe will help you go back and reference this video at a later date if you ever want to watch again how I do this. So if you have any questions, definitely leave a comment below. If this is your first time here, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. I definitely have lots of good content coming out every single week. Otherwise, enjoy. Let me start first by going through the things that I test every single week. So to be honest with you, every single week I check alkalinity, I check phosphorus, phosphate, I check nitrates, and I check salinity. That's it. That's what I test on a weekly basis. I will check calcium at least once a month. I will check magnesium at least once a month, and I will be checking potassium at least once a month. Potassium is another underrated element. It is a major element. You want to be shooting for about 400 parts per million in your reef tank. So I will be testing that one more often as well. So I am going to start with the most important one, which of course is salinity. Before we start, we're actually going to calibrate this, so I'm going to get the calibration fluid and we're going to reset everything back to 0 here. How we calibrate the system is we use this distilled water. Comes with the actual Milwaukee refractometer, but we're going to calibrate it. It's a perfect 1.000 specific gravity. So we're going to put a little bit on this disc and we're going to hit the calibration button. So I'm going to try to do this with one hand here. And we're going to hit 0. And we should be 0. So we're going to read it. Should read at 1.000. Okay, so now that we have calibrated the device, I'm going to take some water here. And this is the frag tank, but this is all the same system. And we're going to put this on here and we're going to take a reading. 1.026, right on the money. Okay, next up, just in case we're going to double check the pH, we're going to essentially put it in your water and we're going to check the pH. Now, to the best of my knowledge, this is going to stay on here until that hourglass goes away. Might take up to about 60 seconds. There you go. 8.08. I am getting 7.97 here, so maybe it is time to recalibrate my pH probe. That's one more reason why I like to double check. So we're going to check one more spot here. Actually, you know what? Let's check over here on the refugium. So I turn it back on, put it in the water. 8.07. Okay, so in both instances here, I am getting over 8. So I may be recalibrating my pH probe, which I'll have to save for another day. Okay, next up is going to be nitrates. I'm going to show you exactly what I do. I take this glass vial and I'm going to dip it in the kind of water right now, just in case if there's anything in here. I always rinse them out when I'm done, but I always like to just kind of a couple of times, just like I'm rinsing it. That way I know that I'm getting a true sample of the water. And it's very hard to do, but you want to get the water sample right at the bottom. How am I going to focus here? So it's been a while since I've been through any kind of chemistry classes, but basically in a beaker like this or in a glass vial, the water is going to be a little bit of curved. So you're going to actually want the bottom of the curve, which I believe is called the meniscus. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong, to go to the bottom of the curve, basically to go to that white line. That's exactly where you want it to be. So it looks almost perfect to me. So we're going to test your nitrates. So with the nitrates with API, there are 2 bottles. You have bottle number 1, which is the yellow solution. I always shake it just a little bit. This one's not as important to shake as the other one. But basically, directions right on the bottle, can't get any simpler. It says add 10 drops. So we're going to add 10 drops in here. I like to hold it directly upright so you get even droplets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, 10 droplets. Then, this is the important part with the API test kits. This bottle number 2, you want to shake for at least 30 seconds. So we're going to fast forward just a little bit, but trust me, this is going to be at least 30 seconds I'm shaking this bottle. Okay, and same thing, 10 drops of solution number 2. So there we go. Now, very simple, you want to mix the 2 in here together. So I just basically turn this upside down, right side up 10 times. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Simple as that. You can see it's already starting to turn colored, which to me means I'm going to probably be back in the red and over 80. So you're supposed to wait exactly 5 minutes before you look at your reading. So we will fast forward this 5 minutes and we'll come right back. Okay, we are back. Once again, well, I'm going to say we are still at 80 parts per million. Nothing special here. So I'm not going to show you this, but what I absolutely do right away, I do not keep the liquid in these bottles. I do not want to dye or change any kind of coloration here. So I always rinse these bottles out immediately. Okay, next up is the Hanna DKH Alkalinity Checker. I am going to fill this glass vial with 10 milliliters. I've already done that with your sample water, your tank water. And I always make sure that I dry this as good as you possibly can, because obviously that's how it's going to be reading, is through the glass vial. So one tip that I do after I turn it on is I always face, if you can see here with the camera, I can get it to focus, I always have the 10 milliliter indication here facing forward. So I have it in the exact same spot, the 10 milliliter facing forward. It's very easy. Sample water, you're going to hit the button, then it's going to tell you to add C2. So you're going to take the same bottle out. You do not want to use 2 different bottles. Same thing, believe it or not, glass is not perfect. They could have actually different colors between one bottle or the other. So I use the exact same bottle. Open it up. We're going to use your solution. I always give it just a little shake. I've never read that it's important to shake it thoroughly or anything like that. Essentially, we're going to open this reagent up and we're going to pull out 1 milliliter of solution. I always pull out more than I need to and come right back down to that black line right there. And that's exactly 1 milliliter of solution. And then you're going to, simple as this, put it in the bottle. Make sure you got it all. You're going to put the cap back on. Same thing. You're going to shake it. Let's say 15 seconds maybe. Same thing, I'm going to dry it off. Make sure there's no fingerprints or anything on it. And wait just a few seconds to make sure any air bubbles are out of here. And same thing, we're going to make sure that the 10 milliliter is facing exactly forward still. Close it up. Simple as that. We're at 8.0 on the dot, which is exactly where I like to be. Okay. Got done cleaning the alkalinity one. Now we are moving on to the Hanna Checker Phosphorus. This one, again, I love this one. 30 seconds, real quick reading. So, in the interest of time, got 10 milliliters of my tank water. Going to be cleaning the vial. We're going to turn on the checker, and C1, of course, is adding again just 10 milliliters of your sample water. I do the exact same thing with this one and make sure that the 10 milliliter is right facing forward. I do this with all the Hanna Checkers. Push the button. Now it's going to be asking for your C2. You're going to add your reagent now. So unscrew. This one is actually in a powder form. I've also read while I'm going to be doing this that it does not have to be perfect. You don't have to make sure that you get every single little powder into this vial. So normally there's actually a cutting line. I actually just rip it, so you'll see, but I like to make sure that all the powder is in the one corner before I start ripping it. And we're going to rip along this line. And then what I do is I almost kind of make a cone with the reagent. I know it's kind of hard to see with the camera, but I like to make a little bit of a cone. And you will see me adding the powder in here. I like to make sure I get as much as I can, but again, it doesn't have to be perfect. There really isn't anything left in there, but if you miss a little bit, it's not the end of the world, just obviously a lot. So from here, you're supposed to shake it at least 30 seconds. Mix this up really good. I have noticed, and I can tell you while I'm doing this again, that this will shut off after 2 minutes. So if you take too long to do this, it will shut off and then you have to start all over, especially if you've already used the packet or the reagent. I kind of don't like that, but it tells you you're supposed to shake it for at least 2 minutes or until all of the liquid is dissolved. So if you shake it enough, it won't take 2 minutes. I try to make it at least close to that, but I know that that will turn off. Same thing, I'm going to dry it with the microfiber. I use my shirt as best as I can. Looks like everything is dissipated. I see a little bit here. I'm going to shake it just a little bit more. So, same thing. Again, we're going to wait. This one actually has a 3-minute countdown, so most of the air bubbles are going to be fine. Same thing, I'm going to make sure the 10 milliliter is pointing forward. And this time, instead of hitting the button, you're going to hold the button until you see the 3-minute countdown. There you go. So I will leave this on, but we will fast forward for camera time. we will fast forward for camera time until we are done. So it will be a full 3 minutes, but it will look like probably 30 seconds. Okay, we're back. As far as the countdown, once this counts down to 0, it's going to flash a little bit, take the reading. Typically I'm anywhere from 6, and this is parts per billion phosphorus, 6 to 17 parts per billion, which we'll convert later. 19. So, I don't know if that's a good thing, but phosphate is a little bit higher. Probably that's going to equate to 0.05 or 0.06. So still low, but simple as that. Calcium's a little bit harder, really not harder, but a couple extra steps compared to some of the other ones. So I'll go through this with you. But essentially what you want to have now is you want to have just 1 milliliter of your test water, and then you're going to fill the other 9 milliliters up with distilled water. I use my RO water. I always want to make sure distilled water will probably give you a more accurate reading, but I haven't really found a problem with the RO water. I basically look for trends. I don't really look at these test kits as whatever I'm testing, that's the exact number of my parameters. I really look for trends. So if it's 420, it goes up to 425, 430, 440. You know what I mean? I'm really just trying to stay within a certain range. This doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm sure that you can buy the distilled water. I'm sure Hanna even sells it, but I just use regular RO water for this instance. So I do have the checker, of course. We're going to take your reagent number 1, and we're going to use this pipette, and we're going to get exactly 1 milliliter. Now, what I actually do here is I do take some sample or RO water, not sample water. I take some RO water, and I will again kind of rinse this out. Try to get anything I can out of here, and then I'm going to dry it off in a towel. So as you can see, there may be a little bit of RO water, but we're going to put some RO water back anyways, but try to clean that out as best as I can right before I do it. So this time I'm going to use the reagent. Getting towards the bottom, so I'm going to kind of curve this up just a little bit. And same thing, I'm going to push it back down until I know that bottom black plunger is right on that black line. So we're going to put in the full 1 milliliter there. And now we are going to add 9 milliliters. This is actually RO water here on the right. This is actually my tank water. So we're going to add 9 milliliters of RO water. Probably going to have to do this a few times. And I'm going to try to, with the camera, do this, but I'm going to try to make sure I'm perfectly on this curvette here. There we go. Okay. Now, that's step 1. We're going to turn the checker on. We're going to put the cap on. Same thing. I do like to clean it. Get all the fingerprints off of it. Make sure that it's clear. This should be asking for C1. This is what C1 is. I'm going to mix it just a little bit. Same thing, I want to make sure that that 10 milliliter is facing forward. And now it's going to ask for, this one sometimes does take a little while, C2. Just in case I'm going to hold it completely vertical. Okay, asking for C2. Now, this is the dropper that comes with, it does a 0.1 milliliter dropper. Now, I'm going to say this before I do it. You have two different stopping points on this plunger. One is all the way down, and one is right there. You can feel it when you're using this thing. This is the first stopping point. That first stopping point is exactly the 1 milliliter. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to put this into your, that's RO water. You're going to put that into your sample water, and you're going to just push it to that first one, and it's going to pull out exactly 0.1 milliliters. And then when you release it, you're going to push it all the way down. That is going to allow you to get rid of everything that's in there. I'll even do it a couple times just to make sure every little bit is out of there. So that's basically 0.1 milliliter of tank volume. That's why this one's a little bit tougher, because it's barely using any of your tank water. And then same thing, now you have a reagent that you're going to mix in with this. This one's actually kind of a reddish, purplish in color. I'm going to rip it. And then this one you don't have to shake for very long. It's actually about, I believe it says 15 seconds on the directions. So same thing, I kind of make a little bit of a cone to dump in the reagent. Okay. Now we're going to shake this, I think it says vigorously, for 15 seconds. Yep, shake vigorously for 15 seconds. And it should be a nice purple color. Same thing, I'm going to clean it off, make sure there's no fingerprints, put it in, make sure that the 10 milliliter is facing forward, and just a tap and it'll give you an instant reading. 433. So in my eyes, 420, 440, even 400. Anything above 400 should be just fine. So alkalinity and calcium for me are right in line where they need to be. Okay, next up, another major element is magnesium. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to take some RO water and clean this out, this vial. Just like to kind of shake it, and then I'm going to dump it into a towel. So we know that we have a clean sample vial, at least as best as we can. Now, again, I'm going to look at the directions just to make sure I'm telling you guys correct, but I have all these pretty much memorized. So we're going to take 2 milliliters of your sample water. So that is exactly 2 milliliters. And we're going to add 5 drops of your first magnesium. And then it says swirl gently for 30 seconds. What I always do too as well is I put these caps on right away. Same thing, you do not want anything in this to evaporate. You want to put these caps on these as soon as you possibly can. They'll make the test kit stay more accurate longer. So 30 seconds or so, and then we are going to put 1 spoonful of the actual magnesium powder in here. And as you can see, I don't know how we're going to be able to show this to the camera, but it's about as close as I can get to 1 spoonful. Not gaping over, not too bad. And again, close the bottle. Wants me to swirl that around for a total of 10 seconds. Now, this is exactly where this one, it's kind of a purplish color, as you can see. It should change to a bluish color when you get to the right spot. So this is the type that on the Salifert that you're going to use 1 milliliter of this other solution, and then you're going to make sure and take a look at the actual, you're going to take the actual readings of what's left over out of the reagent. So it's okay. I don't know if you can see that for the camera, but there's actually a little bit of air in there. There's about 1/10 of a milliliter of air. That's okay. That's totally normal. So this one, we're going to, I normally add quite a bit because I know I should be towards the bottom. And then I start to shake it gradually. I don't know if this will work on camera, but we're going to see this change to a bluish color. Once I get down towards the bottom, I start adding a drop or two at a time and keep shaking it until I see it actually start to change. It is pretty defined when it changes. Right there. Boom. That's perfect. Okay, so as you can see, that changed from a purple to a blue. Now you're going to take exactly what is left, and the top of the plunger says 0.15. It's basically in the 0.15 to 0.14 range. So you're going to go by the bottom of the plunger. You're going to go by the bottom part of the plunger, the uppermost if you're upside down, obviously. And it's about 0.15, right in the middle, almost 0.14. Now you're going to take this chart and you're going to look. 0.14 actually says that my magnesium is about 1290. So I think we got to raise our magnesium just a little bit. Typically the rule of thumb for magnesium is you want to be 3 times calcium. So if you take 433 and multiply that by 3, that's 1299. So actually quite in line, but magnesium is one of those things that if you're a little bit high, I don't think anyone has ever found any negatives to being a little bit high, other than maybe your inverts, like your snails and stuff, might not like it if it's too high. So 1290, it's actually dropping, because I would say last time I tested I was in the higher 1300, so 1290 is a little bit lower. Now one thing I will say too is, if you're in doubt, you can always test it a second time. I will test magnesium now a second time just to be sure, because it's kind of far off. It's about 100 points from my last test, so I'm going to do it again just in case. That part I won't show you. Okay, we are going to start testing this one again. Ooh. Okay, again we went blue, and this time we are at I'm going to say we're at 0.11 or 0.1, which this time 0.1 is 1350. So it could be that I just maybe didn't use enough powder, you know what I mean? Maybe I had a little bit of extra RO water in there when I didn't clean it out. I'm going to basically take another test. Instead of waiting maybe a month, I'm going to test this again next week and see what I'm coming up with. But that's kind of where these kits are not professional test kits. There are errors that can be made when you're taking these, but that's the whole point. When I try to do this, I try to be consistent. So I'm going to say I'm probably between 1300 and 1350. Maybe I'm 1325. Maybe I am 1350. I don't know, but I would say we'll come back to this and I'll test again next week just to see. But I think either way, 1300, 1350 is not really that bad. My salt magnesium should be around 1350 anyways. So we're going to stop it right there. I completely failed on the potassium test kit. It's actually pretty difficult. It takes 20 minutes, and I was reading it completely wrong. That was like my second time attempting it, so I will get better at it, but I will tell you it's kind of one that's a little bit more difficult. So thank you for watching. This has been a 30+ minute video. Hopefully the link in the description below and going to each test kit will be helpful. If you have watched all 30+ minutes of this, leave a comment below. You are truly hardcore when it comes to reefing. So I really appreciate you. Again, thank you so much you guys for watching. You guys definitely know what to do. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe. And of course, happy reefing, guys. We'll talk to you soon.